When we think of a haunting, we typically picture crumbling Victorian mansions or abandoned asylums. But this image shows a perfectly normal 1970s suburban home, the exact kind of place the Donovan family thought would be a safe haven. Inside, however, 19-year-old Patty Donovan was struggling. Uprooted to a completely new neighborhood and living under the extremely strict rules of her parents, she found herself cut off from her peers and deeply lonely. Prolonged emotional isolation creates a psychological vacuum. When a person is desperate for connection, their normal emotional defenses drop, making them highly susceptible to external influences. The entity that terrorized this family didn't come attached to the property. It was invited through the front door because of a vulnerability no one recognized in time. Looking for any form of interaction, Patty brought home a Ouija board.
A Ouija board is a flat wooden surface printed with letters and numbers, which uses a sliding planchette to communicate with spirits. She asked the empty room if anyone was listening. The planchette immediately slid to yes and carefully spelled out the letters BOYFRIEND. The voice on the other end claimed to be a sympathetic 19-year-old boy. Patty spent hours talking to him every day, developing a deep emotional attachment. Trusting this unseen voice, she made a critical error. She asked the spirit to physically show himself in her bedroom. Instantly, the lights in her room began to violently flicker. The planchette went entirely dead and refused to move. By directly asking an unknown force to enter her physical space, Patty bypassed her own spiritual security. She gave an unseen predator exactly what it needed: permission. Paranormal investigators track the severity of an entity using a 3-stage clinical timeline. This diagram maps out those stages, beginning with Stage 1, Infestation. Infestation is the period where a spirit focuses entirely on manipulating the physical environment to announce its presence. For the Donovans, this started as heavy, rhythmic knocking from inside the walls. Soon after, a framed photograph was thrown from the wall while the family sat quietly at the dinner table. When environmental tricks fail to break a family, the timeline progresses to Stage 2, Oppression. Oppression is a targeted psychological and physical siege designed to actively harm the victims. Ellen Donovan began waking up with deep scratch marks across her chest. The walls were covered in unexplained claw marks, and the entire house filled with the thick, unmaskable stench of rotting meat and sulfur. The physical attacks peaked when Ted Donovan went to use the bathroom. Instead of water, a thick, dark red liquid poured from the taps. Plumbers blamed rusty pipes, but the terrifying phenomena kept repeating in every sink across the house. This continuous assault wasn't random. Oppression is a calculated strategy to exhaust a family's physical energy and mental resilience, stripping away their defenses to isolate a single target for complete control. On the night of March 31, 1974, the family was gathered in this exact living room watching television. Without warning, the lights died and the screen went black. A 200-pound solid wood dresser lifted off the floor and began spinning in midair. Chairs and family photos floated through the room as a massive black shadow swallowed the walls, accompanied by a low, guttural growl. Terrified for his family's lives, Ted Donovan packed everyone into the car and fled the house, renting rooms at a local hotel to escape the nightmare. But as they walked down this dimly lit hotel hallway, the electrical lights above them began to flicker. The distinct sound of screaming followed them directly into their rented rooms, forcing the hotel manager to kick them out into the night. Driving away didn't work because the haunting was never tied to the house. The entity was anchored directly to the Donovan bloodline, secured the moment Patty asked it to manifest. Desperate, Ted called in Ed and Lorraine Warren, 2 highly experienced paranormal investigators who specialized in extreme hauntings. The moment Lorraine stepped inside, she spotted a massive black shadow with red eyes floating near Patty's bedroom. Just looking at the entity caused Lorraine to feel physically weak, as if it was actively siphoning her energy. The Warrens quickly issued their diagnosis. The loud knocking, the sulfur, and the severe physical attacks meant they weren't dealing with a human ghost. This was a demonic infestation. The demon had analyzed the family dynamics and reverse-engineered Patty's loneliness. By posing as a caring teenager, it fed her exactly what she needed to hear, manipulating her into lowering her guard. Demonic forces operate under strict rules of engagement. They cannot force their way into a life. They rely on deception to trick humans into willingly surrendering their free will. Because Patty had explicitly invited the entity, the haunting entered the third and final stage shown on our timeline: possession. Possession is total physical and psychological hijacking, and the Warrens knew their standard prayers wouldn't stop it. They secured permission for an authorized church exorcism. As the priest seen here arrived and gripped his rosary, the house turned into a war zone. The room temperature plunged to freezing, the walls vibrated, and windows suddenly shattered. The dark shadow materialized entirely. Patty levitated off the floor as the entity merged with her, turning her eyes a deep red. She screamed in agony before being violently thrown 5 feet through the air, crashing against the wall. She fell to the floor unconscious. Instantly, the house went dead silent. The heavy air lifted, and the dark red liquid in the pipes reverted to clear water. When Patty opened her eyes, she was completely unharmed. The exorcism functioned as a theological blunt force trauma. It severed the supernatural tether and forcibly slammed shut the door that Patty's loneliness had opened. Predators in the supernatural realm use the exact same playbook as predators in the real world. They scan for the isolated, the vulnerable, and the desperate. A mass-produced board game is harmless on its own, but in the hands of someone desperate for a connection, an object as simple as a piece of wood or a bedroom mirror can be weaponized into a conduit. If you feel the urge to seek out answers in the dark, remember the Donovans. Some doors need to stay shut, because no matter how comforting the voice sounds, you never truly know what is waiting on the other side.